Good morning, Metalheads here, and welcome to a new episode of the Metal Meltdown. And today we're looking at the latest album from Panzerfaust entitled The Sons of Perdition, Chapter 1, War, Horrid War. That is quite a mouthful now, ain't it? This is the fifth studio album from Canadian black metal band Panzerfaust. They're from my neck of the woods, actually, my hometown of Mississauga, Ontario. And I'm sure as you can already tell from the album's massive title that this is not your average black metal record. This is the first chapter in a massive multi-part concept album tetralogy in which Panzerfaust will take deep looks at the horrors of war, the atrocities of man, social stigmas, all kinds of nasty, dark, fucked up stuff, with this record in particular focusing on the horrors of war. It's pretty unique, to say the least. I mean, I certainly can't think of any other band that has attempted something so massive and ambitious as this, with the only exception being maybe Coheed and Cambria with the Amory Wars story. But the difference there is that Coheed and Cambria is a super nerdy sci-fi prog rock band with a massive story that stretches across multiple forms of media, whereas Panzerfaust is a Canadian black metal band, and they make Canadian black metal. Thankfully, I think a push like this is just what Panzerfaust needed, because I think they've probably created some of the most inspired and emotional and brutal material to date on this record. You know, I've always seen them as a pretty competent but ultimately somewhat standard black metal band in the past, but here I really see them flexing their songwriting muscles, going into weirder territories, going into darker, more violent territories, and telling different kinds of stories within the world of black metal. Like, it's normal for a black metal band, and for that matter any heavy metal band, to pull influence from real life violence and tragedy, but not so much for a black metal band to figuratively and almost literally put you in the trenches. And that is what Panzerfaust do here. So much so that I'm already kind of convinced that if the next few records from Panzerfaust are like this and have this same level of intensity and honesty and intelligence and emotional heft to them, that Panzerfaust could really be crafting one of the most unique black metal experiences of the modern era. But again, that's consuming that those records are quite on this same level, and assuming that they all connect together in the end, which is something we ultimately won't be able to do until all these records are out, which is going to be difficult because I don't even really know when the rest of them are coming out. With that in mind, let's try and just look at this album individually for now, which shouldn't be a huge problem for a lot of you, because there's a lot to dig into here. As I said before, there's a real brutal honesty and sense of dread to this record, as the album sonically translates the horrors of war right before your eyes. The opening two tracks, The Day After Trinity and Stalingard, do a great job at displaying this with their blunt riffs, their disgusting carcass-esque vocals, their wonderful atmospherics. There's some great synth work that's really subtle and chilling, constantly floating in the air of these songs. The way the rhythm guitars buzz in The Day After Trinity too is particularly ominous. It always feels like something is about to happen, which is pretty fitting as it transitions into the aforementioned Stalingrad, which opens with real-life news clips and real-life voice samples from real-life events within war, with a bit of an industrial doom heft behind it in its opening moments, making it feel cold and mechanical and bitter, before transitioning quite smoothly into some extremely blunt, blackened death metal. Following track, Decapitator's Prayer, is a pretty powerful number as well, particularly once you include the intro piece Crimes Against Humanity, which is a collection of samples, garish noise, and gunshots combined into one howling and semi-terrifying little piece. But the real star of the show here is probably the final track, The Men of No Man's Land, which is probably where Panzerfaust best execute the entire vision, not just of this album, but of this entire concept album series. The track is grueling, it is brooding, it is monstrous, it is violent, it is scary, it is strange, and it is 13 minutes long, and you feel the weight of every minute. Its doomy sprawls and in-your-face vocals consistently send chills down your spine as it agonizingly goes on and on and on. Normally I would complain about any song that was this long and frankly to an extent even repetitive, but it actually works really well here. It instills the fear, it instills all of the emotions that Panzerfaust want instilled in you. It puts you in the trench, again, figuratively and somewhat literally. Made all the more potent and poignant by some of the harshest lyrics on the album as well. With lyrics such as, "The earth did tremble, the sky did cry, it was our turn to play God, as we carried our cross to Flanders, where the pipers played the song of Caber Phi." The band also very wisely here implements the lyrics from the actual In Flanders Fields poem by John McCrae, giving it a new terrifying dimension to it even. I mean, the song is obviously quite morbid considering its origin, but that being said, I don't think you've ever heard it quite this morbid before. I gotta hand it to Panzerfaust. They've really knocked it out of the park. I think this is musically their most versatile and dynamic record. Emotionally, it's their most powerful and honest and real record. It's violent, it's harsh, it's scary, and its real-world implications are downright chilling, particularly when you get to these huge sprawling moments where you really do feel the pain of what these soldiers went through. You really feel their sacrifice embedded through black metal, which is really powerful and something I never really thought I'd see. Again, we obviously don't know how the entire album series is going to go. We obviously don't know if all the albums are going to be quite like this in concept or in quality, but I can very safely say that if they're even half as good as this, then this series is going to be one to keep an eye out for. I will certainly be keeping an eye out on it. I'm going to give this thing a 4 out of 5. It is probably one of the best black metal albums I've heard all year. At the very least, one of the most ambitious and powerful ones. It's definitely not going to be for everyone. I think even for some black metal fans, it's going to be a pretty harsh and brutal record to get through. But getting through it is pretty rewarding, and not as difficult as you might think, as the band very wisely keeps the length down to a trim 31 minutes, which is particularly awesome when you remember that there are 3 other records on the way, and that when put all together, if they're like this, it'll probably be about 2 hours long, which is frankly still shorter than some of the most ridiculous and wildly overindulgent rock operas that have been sent my way from bands like Avalon and Avantasia and Rhapsody and all that shit. Really, the only issue I see going forward is the pacing. I understand why this record is crafted the way it is, but it still needs to be noted nonetheless that it is sometimes a slow-moving and overtly punishing record, and that inherently might push you away even if you are super invested. But nonetheless, I encourage you to give this a shot. I encourage you to be on the lookout for the band's other records in this upcoming trilogy, or tetralogy, or whatever the proper term is. I thought that I had something else to say, but I actually forgot what I was going to say, which probably means this is a great time to officially wrap this up. 4 out of 5, a great record. Oh, before we go on, I'd like to point out that 2 of the best black metal albums so far this year are both Canadian. This and the new Worm Witch record. Fuck yeah, Canada. Canada's where it's at. Fuck yeah. And that is it for the Metal Meltdown. I'm not an expert nor do I claim to be, so what do you think? Do you like this record? Do you not like this record? And what do you want to hear from me next? Thank you for watching. Make sure you press subscribe so you get updates on the Metal Meltdown fucking immediately. And you have yourself a fantastic fucking day.